started recording for YouTube just now. You missed the announcements if you're on
Angela.
YouTube.
This is Chad. Welcome to New Heights Celebrate
Yep,
Recovery.
yep. Almost forgot. Anyway,
okay.
We're going to keep moving.
Dive into the principles.
Or we could do the steps.
Let's do the steps.
It would be good, too.
I'm going to start. I'm going to do the first one.
No, I don't know if you can.
Me, I'm going to.
Here
we go. Are we ready? Step 1.
They're pretty hard.
We admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors, and that our lives had become unmanageable. What are you doing?
For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. Romans 7:18. I almost messed that up. All right. Step 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. For it is God who works in you to will and act in order to fulfill his good purpose.
Philippians 2:13.
We should be better at this. We're the
leaders.
Step
3. There are people who have these things memorized.
I know. I'm impressed.
I have read these for 14 years and I still don't have them memorized.
Well.
Step 3. We made a decision to turn our lives and our wills over to the care of God.
Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Romans 12:1.
You remember in the 80s those Micro Machine commercials where that guy talked really fast and said, remember, this is a Micro Machine, it's not the real thing. Sometimes I think it's a competition for me to read these really fast, and I forget that people are trying to read along.
Step 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Lamentations 3:40.
Step 5. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs.
Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. James 5:16. Step 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. James 4:10.
Step 7. We humbly asked him to remove all our shortcomings.
If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just, and will forgive us all sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. 1 John 1:9. I think I threw you off. That's my bad.
Right.
Step 8. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Luke 6:31.
Step 9. We make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others.
Therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Luke 6:31. Step 10. We continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. So if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. 1 Corinthians 10:12.
Step 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly.
Colossians 3:16. We need to change that back to the old one. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. I don't know. Never mind.
The message?
The other one. Yeah, it just takes a long time. Anyway, step 12. Having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you may also be tempted. Galatians 6:1.
Are you saying it takes a lot longer to say the word message than the word word? It's a 2-syllable word?
You know, I could go back to it. Let me see real quick. But remember this one? It says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, is what it used to be. And it just seems like that's pretty long. Anyway.
Let the message of
we don't
Christ.
Have to,
I bet if we say them at the same time, I could say the longer version faster than you can say the shorter version.
Coming back over here. Why is everything in competition lately?
Anyway. I think that you've said it multiple times because Debbie, Ashby, or Lisa, they're really good they'll text me and say, Chad has mentioned this. Could you please fix it multiple times? They don't want you to be distressed. I
don't know if I feel distressed. I'm just like,
good care of you,
I'm
Chad.
like, man, why don't we just fix that? There was a comment in one of these. I can't remember where it is.
It's distress. That's what.
Anyway.
We're going to call that anxiety.
I'm not okay.
You're worried. When you get to like the seventh step, you start to worry about that 11th one that you're going to have to use the word message in a month.
The message of Christ dwell among you richly.
I digress. We're going to go ahead.
Colossians.
We're going to head into a time of worship.
All right.
Where you can think about.
Well, we got to tell people, if you have
that's right.
something you want to celebrate with us, if you've got 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months, 9 months, or a year, we'd love to celebrate with you. Do I? Nope. I'm getting close, though. A month or two.
I need to look at my chips because I forgot.
You had one in August, I think you forgot. I remember you had one early August. Yep. Like the 13th or something.
I did. Anyway. I started Celebrate Recovery in August in 2006. So I should have like a 14.
I know, you should, but I'm not. It's not my job to keep up with your recovery. Just saying. It's your own recovery.
I'm going to look and I might take
recover for you.
14. I don't even think I ordered a 14-year chip, so I'm going to have to do that.
Well, you should post it anyway, and they'll give you some thumbs ups and stuff.
I'm going to do that.
Anyway, let's worship with Justin, man. I'm excited to bring him. Crosstown Band coming at you. If you have something you want to share with us, we'd love to hear about it. Here we go.
There's no space that His love can reach. There's no place where we can't find peace. There's no end to amazing grace. Take me with your arms spread wide. Take me like an orphan child. Never let go, never leave my side. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I am holding on. I am love like this. Oh my God, to find. I am overwhelmed by your joy divine. Love like this sets our hearts on fire. And I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I am holding on. I am. And I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I am holding on. I am. This is my resurrection song. This is my hallelujah come. This is why it's to you I'll run. This is my resurrection song. This is hallelujah come. This is why it's to you I'll run. There's no place where His love can reach. There's no place where we can find peace. There's no end to amazing grace. And I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I am holding on. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I am holding on. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I am holding on. I am. And I am. In the middle of the storm, I am holding on. I am. The head that once was crowned with thorns is crowned with glory now. And Savior knelt to wash our feet. Now at his feet we bow. The one who wore our sin as shame, now robed in majesty. Of perfect love now shines for all to see. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. Praise will rise to Christ our King. The fear that held us now gives way to him who is our peace. His final breath upon that cross is now alive in me. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. Tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not remain. Our God has robbed the grave. Our God has robbed the grave. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me.
Man, thanks, Justin. Every now and then I want to like just add my audio and start singing with you, but I think it's a real bad idea.
What I really want to do is
I'm over here singing and I'm like...
Get a lawn chair and go hang out on its back deck and just
let him do it.
Just let him have worship, and we'll just have like
get some big
backyard worship. That was a lovely, lovely scenery and beautiful songs too.
I know.
The whole thing. All right, we are heading into...
I miss singing with people. That's all I'm saying.
I do too.
Me and you sing together sometimes.
Does it good. Yeah. We need a leader like Justin though, because
we get a little bit off, don't we?
Just
a little bit. Just a little bit. Anyway.
So we have been doing a series that was Chad led series. The 5 strategies to basically safeguarding your recovery, or like advancing your recovery, or we changed
something like that.
We change the title every other week because on the...
Do you remember what the 5 were off the top of your head? Go.
Yeah, ready, go.
It's a test. She didn't know I was going to do this. I just sprung it on her.
Barriers was the first one.
Yeah, that's true.
Community was the second one.
Very good. That's excellent.
Replacing was the third one.
Was it the third? Probably.
I just remember Indiana Jones. Yep. Then 2 weeks ago, the last one was...
Ooh, this is a hard one for you.
Heart check. Daily inventory. What do you mean it's a hard one for me? It is not a hard one for me.
I just snorted. Just being self-aware. Just being self-aware. I know.
Not only am I self-aware of myself, I'm also very aware of you.
Sometimes it's distracting how much you have to keep up with.
I do an Angela inventory and a Chad inventory
what?
on a regular basis. Goodness. We call that codependency.
No, I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying that's the one. So you know them all. Good job.
Avery and I have our own open share group with codependency. We manage Dad a lot.
Oh my goodness. Between Angela and Avery, they both got me on lock, man. Anyway.
Someone's got to keep you in line during the pandemic.
I know, golly.
Crazy.
But then tonight...
Online shopping is out of hand, off the hook. Sorry, I outed
you. You can't call me out right here on Facebook Live.
I apologize.
Online shopping.
Just drive by and check out the packages that are dropped off on our door.
I don't stay out there. I bring them in quick. Anyway.
My armpit just itched. I don't know why, but I scratched it.
It's all right.
Okay.
This one is the last one. It's Know Your Story.
This is the 5th
and it's kind of basically what I would call like our 4th through 8th step in Celebrate Recovery. So it's like this idea, and so we're kind of thinking about, why do we do what we do? Are we aware of how we got here and what's happened to us in our lives? And what do we do with that? So when me and Angela were talking about this, she had lots of good little stories, and we were like, we'll probably play off of each other. I kind of went a funny way with this. Because I was like, why do we do this? Why do we share our story? Yeah, I mean, it seems like we've lived it, we've been through it. Why do we need to dig all that stuff back up?
I gotta tell you, that's a question a lot of people ask. Like,
I know.
I've done open share, I've done step study. Why do I need to write my testimony and share it?
I know, and so it's tough, and it's a big ask. Yeah. It's a big ask of people. And you talk to step study leaders, or you talk to anybody who's done their inventory, and one of the things they always say is like, oh, that 4th step, I'm gonna have to do that 4th step. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, why is that so hard? Yeah. And why is it so necessary? If you don't do your 4th step, then we end up kind of getting stuck. And we can do all these other things. We can do, the community, and we can have the barriers, and we can know ourselves, and we can kind of replace some of the old habits. But if we don't resolve some of our original hurts, if we don't really kind of look back, like a step study is so good at helping you do. If we don't do that, then I think these things end up kind of haunting us.
I think one of the reasons I like the step study is how direct the questions are. Because a lot of times, you'll meet somebody in open share, or even you'll come and listen in large group to people's testimonies or to the lessons, and it kind of gets you on this journey of opening up about your stuff. But the parts you're sharing about your story, you're still kind of segmented. Yeah. And so that step study really starts kind of digging you in. But even that doesn't share like the narrative. It doesn't say, here is my story. And it's interesting because have been in steps, not only step study, but like CR with people for a long time, and go, I really still don't know that person's story. They really still haven't shared their testimony. I wonder why. There's almost like this thing for me that I think, come on now, it's time.
Tell me.
What's your story? That's a question we ask a lot. Like,
Well, and it's funny because you can't really know your story unless you've organized it in some way.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we kind of get wrapped up in how hard it is to do an inventory, but I'm like, if you don't, go ahead.
One or two unhealthy things that we think define our story, and we miss the importance of the collective thing.
So, the whole story, the whole of it. Yeah. So I threw a couple thoughts on here, and we'll just go through this. The first thing that I really like is that verse that says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. And then the idea that the prayers of a righteous person are powerful and effective. So a lot of times we leave that last part off, but I think it's important that part of the healing is the confessing.
Yeah.
Right? And then it says, and pray for each other, right? And so the prayers of a righteous person are powerful and effective. And how I take that when I think about it and how it works with recovery is that if we share our story with somebody who we respect, somebody who we acknowledge has it at least in a direction, a sponsor, if we're using CR terms, when we share our story with somebody who's been down this road, who gets it for us, then I think it ends up impacting us more, right? Just to tell our story to somebody else at a bar or something, that doesn't do very much for us, because we're like, this is a stranger confessing in a booth or something. Maybe it's good if a Catholic goes and confesses. I think that's a good thing. You respect the priest that's in the booth. But I'm like, just to go out and tell your story just for the sake of telling it doesn't do a lot.
It's still hidden even in the booth. My family grew up Catholic, and there was still like this secrecy. You like go into the box and in private confess. But there is something completely different about sitting across at a coffee shop or in an office or in somebody's house, your sponsor, and eye to eye sharing your story and having them, and then be in community with them.
And not just somebody random, right? Like I think of like the guy crying in his beer. I don't mean to trigger if I do, but like he's sitting at bars. I know, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's a good analogy, because you go out, you're sitting at this place, you're telling, my ex-wife, all my life, all my childhood, it's so hard.
It sounds personal.
I know. Well, it is a little bit, but I'm like, but you go through this over and over, and I've been at lots and lots of bars, so I know that I've heard other people do the same thing, and I'm like, I don't know that it's so effective to just go run through it in the same way we've always done it with people that we don't necessarily respect, or we don't really necessarily think are going to be able to respond or know what to do with it. But when you pick a sponsor and you go sit down with them, like you're saying, and it's somebody that you chose
and you share it sober.
Yeah, you share it sober, not under any influence, whether it's a drug. I guess caffeine could be but probably okay. But I'm like, we do this thing, and we go and do it with somebody we respect, a righteous person, a good person, and we say, hey, how does that hit you, right? Because at the end of it, we're all kind of looking for, how are they going to take this one thing that I did, right? Or that other thing that happened, and will they still accept me, right? And so I think when we've chosen someone, it really does make a difference in how it hits us. And so when I read that verse, I was just thinking, man, that's what I think that verse is trying to say. Go tell your story and pray for each other. And if you share it with somebody that you respect, that's a righteous person, that's a good person, and they pray for you, that is a powerful thing. That's a good thing to have somebody respond to you well like that.
Yeah.
And a big part of why we do this is because as we kind of tell our story, it frees us from the power of the secrets. We've got that phrase, the secrets keep you sick. But I think that it does. It's not just a cliche. Not being known, hiding yourself, hiding parts of yourself keeps you having to cope on your own. It keeps you really stuck.
Well, there's this part, I think, that our body knows. If we're hiding something, then it limits my ability to have a close relationship with you. Because deep down, I think, you like me because you don't know the thing I'm keeping from you. But if you and when you find out that thing, you're not going to like me anymore. So it keeps the relationship superficial. So there's a balance, because you don't just want to like come up to somebody and be like, by the way, here's all my stuff so you can know it. There has to be like a level of, as we get to know each other, I start to share. I find acceptance and build trust. I can share more. I build more trust. You share. Now it's reciprocated. We're sharing. We're getting to know each other. But the relationship then at some point, the authenticity, I think, around it is, I'm not holding back some great big secret that I'm afraid you're going to find out and not like me anymore. I mean, that's the reason I love the Celebrate Recovery community in general, the Forever Family, is because in other, I'm going to call them faith communities or communities in general, a lot of times we do hold those parts back. In church community groups, I've heard people can't share some of their stuff. And so there is this almost like shame is attached to sharing our story. Or even like if someone else knows my whole story, then they're not going to like me. So I have to temper who knows my whole story and who knows parts of my story. And that's the, I think, the miss in our culture is that at some point, can we step into our whole self, our whole story, and go, this is who I am. And those hard parts, challenging parts, bad parts, whatever that is, also influenced who I've become. And so I want to bring those with me, and I do bring those with me. If I bring those with me, am I still going to find acceptance? And it's a trick. It's a hard thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's freeing when it works.
Yeah.
Right. So as we were thinking about this, I'm like, how would I frame this? And I was like, oh my gosh, Angela's not going to like this. Literally, I was like that in my head, and I'm like, I don't think she. Well, but it doesn't matter.
I'm judging even the way
I know. But here's the thing. I'm like, this is how I want to talk about it because it's what I know. And so I was like, man, I'm going to talk about therapy a little bit because I'm a therapist and I got a PhD and all that stuff, so I can. But
Dr.
I don't want
Chad,
to. But I want Angela to help me with this.
Okay.
And kind of give like to interpret for me.
Okay.
All right. So correct me.
Dr. Chad is going to talk, and then I'm going to give the.
And I'm not going to. I hope I'm not too crazy about.
The street version,
doctor,
is that the right way to say that?
The word on the street or something. But anyway, when I was thinking about this, I'm like, how do people get healthy? And I'm like, okay, there's a few kinds of therapy that really do, I think I respect, right? Like, and this is in no order. They're all good for different people and everybody needs different things. But as I was thinking about it, I'm like, these things relate to what we do in CR. So DBT is dialectic behavior therapy, and it's a style of therapy that basically says, kind of we've got to set up rules and boundaries around what we feel and kind of control and contain some of that so that we don't become too much. And then they kind of like help you make sense of your story with these boundaries and rules, right? They kind of say, hey, put this structure around you and build out your story. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm not getting ahead of myself here real quick, just in case. Yeah, okay, I'm going to transition. So I'm going to just go through all those, DBT, EMDR, and EFT, but recognize the unhealthy stuff and try to self-regulate. So I think about that in like terms of like early recovery.
Yeah.
Like you have to be self-aware enough and kind of self-regulated enough to show up.
There is a certain aspect of our guidelines when you come in. I mean, even the rigidity of we have food in our food space, and then we go up and you can't bring food into that space, and then we have guidelines we read together, then we go into these gender-specific places, and we go into issue-specific groups where we can talk about our stuff. There is a certain amount of cultural trust that is built into our CR community that says we're going to maintain the rules. We're not going to go off the deep end. For the most part, even in the newcomer, I'll say when we talk about not using triggering words or language, a lot of people think that's swear words. And while we do, I'll say do want to not take the Lord's name in vain or use aggressive swear words, really we're talking about triggering words. There is a certain respect we have for others that says, hey, in this group setting, in OpenShare, in Step Study, in large group, you have to contain, I'm going to use I and me statements. I have to contain a little bit of the crazy. I can't just let the crazy out all the time because it's going to not only disrupt the group, it's going to disrupt my own ability to get healthy. So there is this part that says, hey, you came here, that's a choice you made, and you have to self-regulate a little bit so that some good work can be done. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no,
I
think it's true of this specifically. If you can't self-regulate, if you can't kind of like find ways to cope through telling your story, you're not going to be able to move forward and tell your story. Right? Like we've got to have some sort of like structure to it and flow to it. And I think that's that's astute. I like what you said there. Like you're saying all of CR is kind of building boundaries and kind of ways to regulate and safety and structure so that somebody can come in and do really hard work. Yeah. And so when I think of that, I think about, go ahead.
Having said that, you can't always self-regulate.
Well, that's where we're going now. Well, not yet. We're going to go to the end. But basically, so I do. I think that DBT is one of those therapies that like I think early on with your story and with recovery and all of it, it's like that's kind of how this functions a little bit. So really as you start to do your inventory though, I start to think about it as like a function of like EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, but we don't have the eye movement part. But anyway, who knows? We walk and we talk and things like that too. But really what we're trying to do is we're going, hey, let me go back into my story. Let me go revisit some event that happened in the past when I write my inventory, step 4, right? When I go do that, I can go have different thoughts about it than when it happened to me. And that's really what we want to do when we share it too. Like when we share our inventory with our sponsor, we want to say, hey, this is what happened to me. This is how this happened. And you kind of go through it in some organized fashion. I know we all do it a little bit differently, but you look like you really want to say something.
Well, I think that, the idea of EMDR is it connects basically our logistic, our limbic system to our emotional system.
Okay.
I guess those are kind of the same, but basically it asks questions about our trauma and about our past that we have to write down and that we have to read to others. And so there is this little part of it that kind of keeps it contained.
Yeah.
It's not just free talk. That's one of the reasons why in Step Study we don't let people just openly share.
Yeah.
We really want it to be refined, because part of the process is when we sat down and answered these questions, we were holding a pen, we were writing it down, we were engaging. We were kind of keeping our body present in the moment of answering the questions.
Yeah.
And that's what EMDR does. It says, I'm going to ask you questions about your past that sometimes can make you kind of lose yourself or
And literally they want you to kind of lose yourself a little bit. So you'll go with something, you'll go with something, you'll go with something. And then eventually you're at a spot that's raw, that's trauma.
Yeah.
And you're opened up and you're like, what in the world do I do with it?
But they also want to kind of keep you present. So they're like, now focus on this light that's right here today on Sunday at 6 o'clock. Watch this happening. We're doing it to you right now. I'm just
Angela's going to take you
tell me about
right to where you need to be. And so our little girl's coming in for a second. But basically what we're saying is that we want to do everything we can to help people kind of go into their story, to go into their struggle and be known and be seen and know that, okay, I've got some power, I've got some ability over what's happened to me, and we can go ahead and say, all right, we have some ability. Avery's saying hi. Say hi.
Say hi.
Say it out loud.
Hi.
Hi. Very quiet. But I think of it in those terms. Like, it's like, if we can go back into our story, if we can organize our story in a really clear way, it really helps us be able to go, hey, we're different. We're transitioning. We're changing. Anyway, but those are things that I really think, hey, when I think about therapy, and when I think about like how a step study or how an inventory works, it's just like that. It kind of takes you to this place where it's like, okay, we're going to transition and we're going to make things different. We're going to tell our story and we're going to do it in a way that's structured and makes sense. Now, the last one for me is really, or therapy anyway, is EFT. Avery's not wanting to go with somebody who's watching her, but it's where we share our distress. We share hard moments with the people around us. So if we've learned to be in structure some, and then we've found a way to kind of like revisit some of the pain of our past and kind of spend some time in it, whether that's with a sponsor as you write your inventory, and I'm thinking about like EMDR, we're kind of digging up what it is that happened there. I got a friend of mine who helped him write kind of his testimony, and I was like, and what's going on there for you? I'm like, and what's that doing? Like, I'm just kind of like digging, asking questions a little bit. Now, if you get a chance to sit with somebody and just be curious with them about their story, I think that helps them kind of unpack it. But what we really need is this last thing where we get to tell our story to someone, right? So I think about that as like basically sharing your inventory with your sponsor. And so I think if we get a chance to do that, I think it's a really kind of healthy and especially, and just FYI, sponsors are supposed to respond well to your story.
Yeah, they're trained to.
Yeah.
There's this part I think that is important when we come to Celebrate Recovery. There's a learning curve to I and me statements. When we grow up, our inner culture, as we share our story, a lot of times our story is what other people have done to us, or what other people believe, or how we've been affected by circumstances. And when we get into CR, that's something we really push is, what is your experience? Can you use I and me statements? And can you share what's your part of your story? What choices did you make that may or may not have led you to this position? How does your body respond to some of the things that have happened, so that you can know your story. That's the point of this, is to really go, you are the common denominator in your life events. How do we get your narrative to really be your story, your part, your response to things, your emotions, your feelings, your pain, your hurt, the habits and hangups that happened in your life because you were looking for comfort in those places. I mean, if I use, that's the part here, but I could do all that with I and me statements because I just said you a lot. That's the point. Know your story. For me to know my story, I had to really start owning my choices, my pain, my hurt, how I felt, what hurt me, what my circumstances were, what part I played in that. That's the catch that's really, really hard. And the CR process helps that. Open share is a good start. Then step study you start to. Then you write out your inventory. I see that you want to talk about that one for a second.
Well, I'm putting we'll go through a couple things. That was kind of just the little the frame I use, because I think it's like every style of therapy basically has a little bit of itself in CR.
Yeah.
Like I think everyone that's
CR kind of pulls from.
It kind of pulls, and if you apply them, man, you can get a lot out of CR, right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to therapy and go to a trained therapist and all the things, especially if you've got things that really need to be processed that way.
Yeah.
Or if you really don't feel safe telling your full story to somebody, go pay a therapist and they're paid for confidentiality.
Whether it's therapy or whether it's CR or whether you have a really good, safe other, a best friend or a spouse that you can share. Wherever you find this outlet, there is healing in talking about your story. There's healing in it. If you close it down and don't talk about it, you can never get it responded to in any setting. But if you start talking about it, whether it's in a therapy setting, whether it's in a CR setting, whether it's in a whatever setting it is, once you start sharing it, you can own more parts of it, and you can really start adjusting and getting the healing that you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we're kind of getting at, is saying, build out your story, get it responded to, have somebody start to tell your story, build boundaries around it, and so really all we're saying is, in this step, if you're saying, hey, I want to get healthy, I want to really get sober, and you're saying, I've got the community thing down, I've got boundaries, I've got my, replacements in place. I've really figured out how to kind of be a little more self-aware. You really have to be self-aware before you can start this process. You have to be open to seeing what your part is in things and what's happened. And then as you move forward, if you're saying, I want to do it, I think that's where I would encourage you, write your inventory. Go and sit down with book 2 and start to look at those exact questions and start to write out your inventory. Ask yourself, if I love to do a timeline with an inventory, and I start when I was a kid and I go through it. Some people really are like, I want to use a person or people or specifics, but I feel like, man, the timeline thing really helps me kind of make sense of it. What do you think about when you think about writing your inventory?
Gosh, I remember doing the lesson here about 5 months ago or whenever this thing started, and kind of breaking it down to praying through, God, what parts do you want me to know about myself that I didn't know about before?
That's good.
I think the first time I sat down to do my inventory, I remember thinking, I have never done this before.
Yeah.
I have never assessed where my pain came from, how it affected me. And then that last column, which says your part, it's like, God, what do you want me to do with this information now? Am I supposed to do something? Are you just sharing this with me so I know and can know what is influencing my choices? Or do I have to make an amends or ask for forgiveness? Is there a part that I play?
It's funny because when you start step 4, you start doing like step 4 through 8 in your head. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to tell somebody, and then I'm going to have to make amends, and oh my gosh, I'm going to, I do the same thing. I think everybody does.
What do I do?
Oh my gosh.
But the first time I did an inventory, I'm like,
this is daunting.
Who does this?
Yeah. Yep.
Normal people don't do this.
Yeah.
Which is such a relative, that word normal is so relative, because now, 14 years into recovery, I know that unhealthy people don't do this.
Yeah.
All the healthy people that I know
do this.
Who acknowledge that they're in process, who have humility, who can own the mistakes they make a quick amends, ask for forgiveness, acknowledge their responsibility. Those are people who know their story, know their character flaws, have written out.
Go spend time on it. Yeah.
So my perspective of what healthy is so different 14 years into recovery and mental health and therapy than it was way back in the day when I was in denial.
For sure. So you have to go sit down and write it out. And that's really just step 4. It is this idea of like, okay, I'm going to do this, right? And it is. Yeah. I mean, I would encourage you, put boundaries around it. Spend time asking God, how does this affect me? Ask a sponsor or a friend if they can help you with it. Go spend some time on it, right? Go spend some time on it, because it's like removing the I just went totally down a rabbit hole, but it's like removing the wound, the bullet, the arrowhead. It's how you dig in and clean up that thing so that it doesn't affect you every time you move your arm or whatever. Yeah. It's digging into the thing and saying, now, does it hurt when you do it? Sometimes it does. Yeah. Sometimes it hurts a lot, but sometimes it also heals after. Better. Yeah, and you can start to go live. So that's number 1. Number 2, that I really just practical point is share your inventory. Yeah. I know that everybody gets caught up with having to share it before they even do it. So do it first, and then you only have to share what you want to. Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing about CR or therapy or anything else, right? Nobody's going to force you to do more than you can. But I want to say, if the more you share, the more you can heal. The more you can kind of get refreshing kind of, what do I want to call that? Like light in there.
I was talking to someone the other day who's working on her testimony. And it was interesting because pre-inventory, there were all these things she thought, oh my goodness, these are the things I'm going to have to include in my testimony. And she said, once I wrote my inventory out and then shared it with my sponsor and actually said a few of the things, as soon as I said them, I was like free from the hold they had on me. Yeah. And now it's like, I've already talked about that. That's not as relevant to my story as I thought it was. I don't know about you. I'm an external processor. So for me, as I say things out loud, I go, do I really like what I'm saying out loud or not? Yeah. And so there is a part of our inventory that you write and you share that you're like, yeah, okay, now that I've said that out loud, that I believe differently about my story now that I'm interacting with others. That's the part that is so vital to our healing, is the interaction we have with other people. Sharing our thoughts, getting feedback, even acceptance helps us go, is this right? Is this good? Is this sound? Does this need work here? Do I need to consider this? And so it's so valuable. Inventory, sharing it, writing it, even going further to the next thing Chad wants to talk about.
We could talk about this all night, probably.
Keep going. We got to roll on through.
We're almost there.
Good.
But the next piece in knowing your story is not just the testimony and sharing your testimony. It's where the testimony thing is so important. Man, I know that when I sat down and wrote my testimony, I was like, this is a lot.
This is hard.
Well, and it's like, it does something different. So doing an inventory, and this is why it made me think of therapy. Like when I started thinking about like, okay, what does this really mean? I was like, oh, because it serves a different function. It serves another part of your brain's kind of a function for another part of your brain. It kind of lets you organize this thing in a new way. So like doing a bullet point list or doing an inventory does one thing, but when you go and say this narrative version of what's happened to you and kind of how you're getting out of it, it really does kind of like put it together in a story that's like, oh my gosh, there it is.
Tightening it up for like to share at CR, which by the way, we're hoping late October, maybe early November, we're going to start meeting in person again. So I'm going to need testimonies. Let's get your testimony up. Let me know if your testimony has been rewritten, a new ending, whatever. Let's apply Chad's lesson today in practice. A month and a half from now, we want your testimony. But the idea there is, what part do I tell? How do I tell? Chad starts every time he talks about himself. He starts with, "I was born in Paducah, Kentucky."
Well, I was born in Paducah, Kentucky. Share your testimony is next. I'm going to keep moving for a second. I didn't mean to, but I accidentally hit it, so we'll keep talking about it.
And then share. So this idea that once you start to share it, to try to go, what parts do I include in this first 20 minutes? And I have shared my testimony dozens of times from 2006 till now. And every single time I share, it's a little bit different. because it's adapting with me. And I'm not saying that the circumstances change. What I am saying is that the focus that God has me in my life is changing. My ability to see circumstances in a different way, my ability to recognize God's hand in some of even the hardest things, that is growing as I grow, and therefore my story is changing. And so it's really important to know what your story is so that you can kind of go, what spots in my story do I still need to know where God was, what the influence was?
Well, and so for me, I'm going to try to wrap us up in the next 4 minutes.
We got to do it.
4 minutes.
I'll stop.
No, you're great. I wanted you to do it. But in each stage, hopefully you're sharing your story and you're going to be responded to it, whether it's your inventory or whether it's your testimony. Yeah. Right? So if you share your inventory with a sponsor or someone else that's close to you, then they get to respond to that. And that the reason we do this is for that.
Yeah,
humans, we need a response to the things where we question ourselves in order to kind of like make sense of it in our brains.
Yeah.
There's tons and tons and tons of research on this, but we need a response. We need somebody to tell us that we're not crazy, that we're not the only one, that we're not the problem. And so hopefully every time you do an inventory, you share it with a sponsor. Just doing the inventory can help you organize it. But I think of like DBT, right, that first area, it's like that's kind of expecting you to do a lot to downregulate. It's not the most efficient way. And then, but if you share it with your sponsor, I think about EFT. I know you guys don't care about those things, but that's where you get responded to. It's much, much, much easier to downregulate your own your body with someone. If you have somebody who says, that's okay, I'm with you, and we've got this. So I'm going to keep going. And I'm
with you. We've got this.
We got this. Wrap up, Chad. Wrap up is what she's saying. They're going to start playing music in a second. And if you want lasting change, you have to make peace with your story. It is required. It isn't something that we get to choose not to do. So that's kind of my talk. I mean, that's kind of my idea about this. And this last piece is the last one. And
that's the last one?
That was the last one.
Okay.
And so I'm told you 4 minutes, and I think I did it in
2.5.
Let me see. I did it quick. That was good.
I want to say something about your last part.
Go.
Your last point.
Go.
Even as you share this, like there were parts of my story, like I just said, that grew as I grew.
Yeah.
The parts that I still was unable to talk about still had a hold on me.
Yeah.
That's the progression of healing. There are going to be, if you're brand new at this, if you've never shared your testimony, if this is your first inventory, we're not asking you to write everything. It's impossible to in the short amount of time you have. That's why people get into second step studies. That's why people share their testimony again. Because as you grow, you'll know, okay, I've dealt with that, gotten forgiveness, done what God has required. Now he wants to take me to another level. Now I have to deal with this. Now he wants to take me to another level. Now I have to deal with this. And at every level, we've got to talk about the thing we're dealing with and share it and get it responded to. Exactly the thing that Chad is saying. And so this is now a progress that happens, a process in progress that happens where at every level, we're not done. We have to keep sharing and we have to keep getting responded to. The hope is now that we've built an accountability team, we've built a community around us, we have Forever Family, we have relationships that know how to do this. And so I want to say it gets a little bit easier. Like it
gets better. That's the funny thing about our brains. So I literally am going to try not to talk about this. But the funny thing about our brain is that when we get responded to, it's the way we're designed.
Yeah.
And so your brain wants to do it more. It like says, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. Yeah. And so it's like even in a subconscious level, your brain starts to go, okay, this is free. This is free. This is free. And so it starts to do that. And it's why we went to our drug of choice or whatever that is, right? Like it was to get the comfort that actually we were supposed to get this way anyway. And so I just want to encourage you guys, tell your story, write your story, share it with somebody, and then share it in a larger group format because it's where the healing happens. Step studies are great because they help you kind of like EMDR organize the past and dip into it, right? But really what we need is the responsiveness. We need to share it with another human. We need to be seen and known. If you guys
start having light bars in our step studies.
we're not. But if you guys, man, if something hits you tonight and you're saying, hey, I want to do something with this, I want to try to be intentional about my next inventory, or I want to try to dig into maybe that one thing that I've never really shared, and you think, hey, I want to go do that with a sponsor or in a step study, hopefully we're going to have those soon. You guys, I encourage you, that is where the healing happens. That is where it happens. We need the community. All the other aspects, you've got to have them to do this.
Also,
right?
Or if you want to go talk to a therapist, that's something we don't push enough. But New Heights Church has amazing resources. If you're a part of New Heights Celebrate Recovery, you're a part of New Heights Church. And if you would like to talk to a therapist at the Joshua Center, we even have referrals where we can kind of get you in with somebody.
Get you started a little bit.
Yeah, where you can get a couple of sessions where you can start the process. So if that's you and that's something you think like, I have been needing to talk to somebody, especially during the season when we're not having open share regularly, we don't have step study, and you don't have an opportunity to talk to somebody about it. If we could get you back in where you could have that conversation, that would be great. So we've got.
I like it. So one of the comments was the addiction came in stages, so does recovery. That's a great point. And it's layered. All of it's layered, and you have to kind of just keep digging in. Yeah. So let's kick it over to Justin for worship. If you want a blue chip tonight, or if something hits you, or something you're thinking about, hey, I need to lay something down, let us know if you'd like to. You can put that in the comments. Again, it's not confidential or private, but you can say that. You don't have to tell us what it's for if you don't want to. Or you can just email us on the side or text us, that kind of thing. We'll give you a thumbs up. That's right. Can't give you much else, but the little thumbs up. Anyway, I'm going to kick it over to Justin, you guys. Thanks for letting me share tonight.
So long I carried the weight of my past, crippled by burdens like stones on my back. I thought I had fallen too far from your grace, when you came and showed me the way. When I was a lost soul searching, you were the ground beneath my feet. When I was a blind man begging, you were the eyes so I could see. When the smoke was rising up, you were the air that I could breathe. You gave me hope, you gave me something to believe. Now I'm alive and born again, rescued from the grip of sin. God, your love came crashing in and pulled me out of the fire. I'm a survivor. Can see are the fields of your grace. Wherever I run, you're leading the way. Shook the shackles off my feet, found redemption on my knees. You gave me hope, you gave me something to believe. Now I'm alive and born again, rescued from the grip of sin. God, your love came crashing in and pulled me out of the fire. I'm a survivor. No, I'm a survivor. You're my God. You're my fighter. You make me a survivor. You're my God. You're my fighter. You make me a survivor. Now I'm alive and born again, rescued from the grip of sin. God, your love came crashing in and pulled me out of the fire. I'm a survivor. Oh, I'm a survivor. Yeah, yeah. You pull me out of the fire. I'm a survivor.
I'm a survivor. Oh,
He just sings
just
the
over
whole
here
time.
singing with
It's
you,
really
Justin.
great. Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, to make sure we get this on time, we're going to kick it over to another great face. We just love that we get to put up people that we've missed seeing. And so tonight, with a wonderful outdoor theme that we have, because fall in Northwest Arkansas is beautiful. Check it out for the Serenity Prayer.
Here's the Serenity Prayer.
Hey there, Forever family. I miss you guys a ton. I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with depression, food issues, codependency, plethora of other things, and my name's Bailey. And I'll be doing the Serenity Prayer, so if you would, join me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life, supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
Oh, hi, Bailey.
I love it so much.
That's a nice rock.
Crickets.
Did you see that big rock? That's a cool rock.
She was on some sort of great adventure hike, but it was gorgeous, and we're so glad that you jumped in tonight with us to give us the Serenity Prayer. Thank you guys so much.
And it was good to see you too, Bailey. I didn't even say that. The rock was cool, but good to see you, Bailey.
It is. I love Bailey. It's good to see you guys. The feedback tonight has been great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We just love to see everybody interacting with each other. So thank you so much. Just shout outs to everybody: Patty, Felicia, Scott, Dennis, Justin, Jennifer, Bailey, all the people who are on and watching. If I missed you, we love that you're with us. It
helps us stay motivated and all that.
All the things.
It's fun because we know you're there and we see the kind of comments coming. So it's good to see you guys.
We'll catch up with you next Sunday at 6. Thanks so much for being here with us.
All right, y'all. Talk to you soon. As long as I get the last word, I win, right? Isn't that the game? Hold the smile, because we're going to try to transition out here in just a second.